I wanted to ask you about your most recent piece in The Intercept about how Modi and the BJP is sort of weaponizing big tech against dissent in India and the massive farmers' protests, and specifically the arrest of a 22-year-old climate activist who was held for 9 days and was released this week. But how, I guess my question, I mean, this sort of interplays because when nationalist governments control the narrative, it's very hard for us to have that internationalism. It's very hard for us to break through the misinformation. So yeah, I guess how is that happening in India from what you've been researching, and maybe how that relates back to, these tech companies that are US based?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think that there's, in a weird way, more internationalism on the right now than the left. In the sense of like really swapping strategies, and Steve Bannon's flitting around the world, connecting people with all, it's like worst practices. Like, what's the worst thing you're doing in Israel? Okay, great. Let's move that to India. And it's like, well, what about China? I like what you're doing with the internet. Let's try that, and then like, Trump and Bolsonaro and, it's a club, and Duterte, and they're really swapping strategies. And what's interesting looking at what's going on with tech, right, is...
Talk about a white elephant sale. I'm sorry. I'll see myself out.
He does that.
Okay, got it. What's interesting about what's happening with the tech companies in India is you have this kind of double digital jeopardy that you see really clearly in the Disha Ravi case, who's that 22-year-old climate activist, where on the one hand, you have Modi's troll army, and he's really, really good at it. And Facebook sees India as as its most important market, right? So the backdrop for, there's only 2 countries in the world with more than 1 billion potential tech users. That's China and India. They've already lost China, right? Because of sort of early Silicon Valley. Some of it was idealism, some of it was shame. They used to have shame. And so there were a few like high profile cases. I don't know if you remember this, but it turned out that Yahoo helped the Chinese government identify a dissident, somebody posted something that they didn't like, and it turned out Yahoo gave the Chinese government their IP address. This became a huge issue. Google as well was cooperating at the beginning with the Chinese government censorship, and then what used to be their slogan, "Don't be evil," was kind of jujitsu'd against them, and Google employees objected. Right. And bottom line is, most of them left, right? And Facebook was never there. And China developed its own tech companies that now rival Silicon Valley, right? And those companies are able to do things that they're not able to do in the US, right? So there's more smart cities, there's more surveillance, there's all the like creepy
choreographed dances on TikTok. Yeah.
And there's also like that, the app that does it all, right? Like you've got total integration of payments, banking, cashless, whatever, all that. So Facebook sees India as the market where they're going to be able to do that, which they're not going to be able to do it in the US. The US, they're talking about breaking them up, right? So they see India, which is already Facebook's largest market by users, as the place where they're going to do all the things that China is doing that they haven't been able to do in the US. Now, the price of this is they have to give these Hindu nationalist politicians the ability to post whatever kind of hate they want on their platforms, and it's really kind of genocidal language that's being used. Like, for instance, there was a big campaign that was like hashtag Corona Jihad, which was this claim that Muslims were deliberately spreading COVID.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I have friends who are activists in India who
would have thought of that one, right? Like, that's very Kung Flu-esque.
For sure.
Anyway.
But like how many documentaries have there been with like Facebook executives wringing their hands about the Rohingya massacre and saying, well, we're not going to let that happen again. We're really on it. You know, we're like they recognize that they played a role in a genocide.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends in India who are describing what is happening describing India's market as a pre-genocidal market, that it can tip in at any point. And so it's not just about online hate. It's about online hate tipping very frequently into offline pogroms. This is already happening in India. And so the price of admission is free reign to the BJP politicians who want to spread this kind of hate. And this is the pincer of it, because it is, you have to cooperate with the government when they ask you to give them a backdoor to the messages of, you know, activists and farmers and so on, and deplatform whoever we say. So Twitter has killed the accounts of something like 1,500 accounts that are linked to the farmers' protests. Google apparently has cooperated with giving the Delhi police information about who edited a Google document that Greta Thunberg tweeted, an entirely benign clicktivist document telling people.
And Google was the one to actually give that information out.
Well, that's what the Delhi police claim. Google didn't answer my request for comment on this. They have not said a word. None of them have said a word. And it is scandalous that they're so silent when their tools are being used to hunt down young climate activists. Zoom also, the Delhi police is like, yep, we've asked Zoom to tell us who was at a particular meeting, who participated. And once again, I asked Zoom for comment. Zoom sent me, an email referring me to their corporate policies, which say we follow the laws of every country where we operate. Now, the other thing that happened is that India passed a new set or just announced a new code that will regulate digital media that says that if you post something that questions the integrity of India, which I'm pretty sure we've just done, then you have to take it down within 36 hours. And if you get a request for some kind of cooperation, information on whoever posted it or where it originated from, you have to cooperate within 72 hours. So this is Chinese level, hunting down of unpopular opinion. I mean, it's not dissidence. It's like anyone who says something they don't like. They talked about mischievous content. This is.
I'm sure they'll ban all these, they'll ban them all once the Capitol is stormed and, politicians' lives are threatened. And if they do hang the vice president, then maybe they'll be banned from Google and Twitter and Facebook. And only then we'll be like, oh, right, fascism's kind of the same everywhere, isn't it?
Well, the truth is, these guys found their moral compass when it looked like Trump was on the way out, and they were afraid that Biden was going to regulate them. So they're doing one thing in North America where they're like, oh, yes, you don't have to regulate us. We have the Supreme Court of Facebook that's coming online, and we're doing all of our own fact checking, so don't touch us. And in India, it's like, what do you want us to do?
Everything.
Yeah. That was good.
Thank you. I can walk to Mark Zuckerberg's house from my house. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you would like me to say to him? I can go over there right now and have a talk.
You can also walk to Nancy Pelosi's house, Nato. Was that you who spray painted the Circle A on her garage?
That's a little bit of a longer walk. Like Zuckerberg is like in the same zip code as me. Pelosi's across town. I'm not in that kind of shape. I'd have to get a go bike or something.
Naomi,
anyway, they're bad. That's the bottom line. These tech companies, bad news.
They're bad news, and absolutely. I mean, this is what it feels like. It feels like it's a little bit of a puzzle. All of this is a puzzle, and that first sort of piece that we have to unwind here does really feel like it goes through tech, because it feels like it goes through information, and it feels like it goes, and that's at the heart of democracy in and of itself, and truth, which we've all seen unfold under horrifically in front of our eyes under the Trump administration and then the pandemic. And you're like, oh, no. The first piece is breaking off you know, big tech, big media, and just being able to actually have truth somewhere, somehow.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's not just breaking them up. It doesn't solve the underlying problem. The underlying problem is their business model. Their business model is surveillance. Their business model is data extraction. The way to get the data is to keep people in a state of acute agitation and in so-called engagement. And that's not going to change, you know.
Hey, please acute agitate with this post right now. If you're listening, just like 5 stars, all the acute agitation you can muster. Have you become a patron yet? Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you can directly support this show and help me make it sustainable so that I can do more of what I do best, doing this.